Hello and welcome to this episode of Beat Teacher Burnout. Today we're going to be talking about alarms at 4 o'clock in the morning, about guilt, about collapse, about sustainability, and ultimately about you as the listener learning so that you don't make the mistakes that we made. That is our heart for today's session. And I'm joined wonderfully by Dr. Jane Todd, who I met because I connected to her values and her ethos, her main message about thriving in education. So, welcome, Jane. It's great to have you on board. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about you?
Yes, thank you for having me, Rowena. So I was a teacher. I went to Durham University to study education. Absolutely passionate about education and a heart for learning, and both for myself and enabling others. So I didn't stick at just one degree because that wasn't enough for my inquiring mind. I did my master's in educational policy, my doctorate's in education as well. And so I was teaching and got to school leadership level. I've lectured as well on PGCE courses and in education departments. And then we'll come to the story of why I left teaching, but still staying in education, I moved to owning a nursery and do music education through classes there whilst lecturing as well. I have been in education all my life, and at the heart of everything, that is my passion.
Wow, thank you. You've got a raft of interesting roles and experience. So, maybe start by because clearly you were a passionate educator, and as a leader, why did you leave that role in school?
Okay, well, because I'm passionate and I'm driven and I want the best. I'm not someone who sits back and this'll do. If I've got fire in my belly for something, I want to give it my best. And so because I was constantly wanting to learn myself, hence the master's, the doctorate, again in school, I didn't just do enough. I was always wanting to do more and more to improve, doing courses, doing X, Y, Z. So, and I think with my skill set, the leadership side did marry together nicely, and being able to enable others and help others, support others, it did fit. It got to the point where I was leadership in a school and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And it was a lovely balance of leadership, teaching, absolutely loved it. It was when I was pregnant, actually, that I then stepped up to cover when the head left and I was in an acting role there. And that's suddenly where obviously a lot more work came in. And to get it done, because I was still teaching on other things, I was having to set alarms at 4 o'clock every morning to get on top of my emails. And I was aware that the time was creeping. And so you're aware, I think, when it's yourself, you push yourself. There were times with being pregnant that I wasn't able to give quite as much, or I was aware that there was something else I was affecting. So that kind of made me think, but I gave my all to that. I absolutely gave my all to that position, to the point that I only stopped work on the Friday, went into labour on the Monday, because I was prioritising work over me because I was wanting to give my best. And that's when you know that that's not a balanced state you can stay in forever. But because I'm driven and because I've always wanted to give my best, it was what I did. So why I left leadership was a long story of that. When things were different once I'd had my child and I was traveling to work and a new head came in, and when you just have a different head with different values and different ways of seeing things, and where it'd been harmonious before and things had worked really well, it was just different. And something had changed and there was a shift, and there was the guilt of leaving a child at nursery whilst I was driving out to work, as well as practical things. But that was when it wasn't necessarily to get out of education, but because I'd been on maternity, that was when I'd been going to the music classes with my little boy and started thinking about, well, my doctorate's in progression in music. What can we do here for the parents who are returning to work and aren't going to classes? And that was when I'd thought about the idea of doing a music-based nursery so other children could get. So it wasn't that I was just leaving leadership. There was almost like a new phase and a new chapter had come as well. But I couldn't have continued how I'd been working, because that was starting to have a negative effect on my well-being. I started getting very anxious, very sick, had to go to the doctor. So, but I think you often don't recognise those things in yourself till something happens where you're made to recognise it. So I didn't leave education, but I did transition from school leadership to setting up my own educational business. And as we'll come to, I thought this, you think, going to be my own boss, all those things you can control. Well, that's a whole nother story, which I'm sure we'll get to. But so I never left education, but yes, leadership, because I think parameters aren't necessarily put in place for you and you're wanting to both prove yourself as well as do a good job, it's easy to get caught up without stopping back and saying, hang on, this is okay. So one thing I had to do at that point, I had to take email notifications off my phone. So it was a conscious thing that I would log in, choose at a time that worked for me to log in and check those emails rather than the ping, ping, ping constant. But Sunday night's a good one for that, because it's the good old, do you check your emails on a Sunday night so you can sleep? And if there is anything, at least you know about it rather than that Monday morning panic. Or do you say, no, this is my time and it's the weekend. What will be, I'll face on Monday morning. But that can be a hard one. That going to bed on the Sunday night feel is often a biggie, isn't it, for leaders?
Yeah. So I wonder if, because I know we've got school, we've got nursery, we've got other leaders and teachers and
Mm.
practitioners listening. If someone listening is saying, okay, I absolutely relate to how you're feeling about
Mhm.
the anxiety, having to go to see the doctor, starting to recognize that you're
Yeah.
seeing signs that are a bit of a concern in your body, what would you be saying to people to do?
I think that's a hard one because some of it is very dependent on your context of what is causing it. Is it almost yourself because you've pushed yourself too much and you got yourself into a position where you're not sleeping, and it's almost your response to a situation or an environment? Or is it something external causing it? Is it a relationship at school with a superior or someone that's not clicking, that's bringing the stress? So I think the first one is identifying the cause of what it is. Is it you yourself that you've got into that sort of the hamster wheel, and you need to go, whoa, I need to get off this? Or, as I said, is it caused because something else that isn't right? And therefore, is that something that you can approach and deal with? Or is it actually something that means that's untenable now? It's changed. And this is it in education. Nothing is constant. A head can change, a colleague can change, a new policy. And there's times where it's okay to say, this doesn't bring out the best in me. This isn't the best environment for me to be in. We all lead in different ways and people respond to different ways of leadership. And it's okay sometimes that maybe a different leadership style doesn't sit with you and it doesn't work. And it's okay to recognize that rather than trying to make yourself something you're not to fit with that and always having that cognitive dissonance that it's not quite right. So I think the first thing has to be, what is the root cause of this? Is it overload? Is it too much work? Is it a person? Is it a situation? Is it you? Because then when you know that, it's trying to pick back, well, can I take a small step, like only checking my emails at set time? Do I need to say, it's okay without guilt to not mark books tonight, and I'm having an hour for myself, and that is okay? Is it that you need to be brave and have that conversation with someone and say, I've worked really hard, but almost you've seen me working hard and now there's an expectation there, but actually I can't keep going at that rate. But a lot of this depends with how well you understand yourself and also your relationship with your line manager, whoever it is, of how honest you feel you can be and how well known you feel, I think.
Yeah, there's a key there, isn't it? How well known you feel, and
Mm,
whether, as I guess that's a message to leaders, isn't it? To ensure that your your team feels seen and
yeah.
heard and valued. And that's, I don't know, that's probably a whole nother podcast, but for me, that's the core
And
sort
that
of
was always,
central part.
absolutely, as a leader, that was always the bit I held on to, of making sure people felt heard, seen, and known, that they weren't just a number in an operation, but I knew them as them. And I think that was both when I was leading at school and in nursery, because that is so, because you want the best from people. Well, how are you going to get the best from people when they feel that you understand them? And also, if there is an issue, you want them to be able to feel they can come and say, I'm not coping with this, or this is too much, which if they don't feel safe, they can't do. And I think a lot of what I put in once I became a nursery owner, and I was able to almost set my own things, you put into place what you've learned and what you've experienced, what you think, I hope there's never this environment here, or I hope there's this. So you try and craft something from everything you've learned to try and create that safe space.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, I've spoken to the room leader and the school teacher. Both said they felt like unseen cogs in a giant machine, and
Oh,
that when they were asked to do something, the knock on of it was when they were asked to do something, for example, doing some overtime or taking an extra club or taking an extra group of children, they didn't feel they could say no because they felt that they were letting the team down. They felt guilty. at saying no. And I wonder if that is part of feeling unseen and unheard.
Oh, absolutely. Because the opposite, if you feel valued and seen and you don't feel like a nameless cog, you're recognised and you know that if I go to Jane and say, oh, I'm having a rubbish time, she's going to say, right, okay, let's get a cup of tea, let's talk through this, move forward. Then when Jane says, is there any chance you can cover this extra club on Thursday? They'll probably say, not a problem. You were there when I need you, you know, and you get that gift. Whereas when you feel that you're just seen as a number and you're told you're doing it, you get a bit of resentment, don't you? You feel you can't say no, you don't feel seen, you don't feel recognised. And then, of course, it's hard once you get a bit of resentment or feeling that to shake that, because so much can be lost by, not making time for someone or a comment that goes deep, isn't it? And actually that time to build up a culture where people feel valued I've always seen it as a two-way thing. You give your best to them, they give their best to you. If it's just seen that you're the boss, I'm the person, I do what I'm paid for, and that's not the environment you want, particularly when we talk about education and wanting the best for our children, because we should be modelling what we'd like to happen. So I think the key of all of that is people feeling seen, because then they probably would do the club after school, and rather than resentment, just go, it's part of it, I'm part of the team. When you feel part of a team as opposed to a cog, there's a huge shift in how you're feeling about it. And rather than something like, oh, I've got to do it, oh, I'm doing this, it's a whole different way of seeing it. Even if the physical time you're spending at work is the same, it's how you're feeling about it because of how you've been made to feel.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So when you became an owner of a nursery, and a very successful nursery, I have to say, did you feel being in control that it was very different, and did your habits change? Did you feel less likely to burn out?
No, the opposite. Which was not what I expected. I was expecting, when you're in school and you're working for someone else and you have to do things in a certain way, I was like, become your own boss, you set it. And there's some amazing bits of being your own boss, And it was amazing that, I could craft the curriculum and I could employ the people I wanted, and I could really think about the ethos I was doing. That side, brilliant. What I didn't realise was what a steep learning curve it'd be, because suddenly you're very isolated. When you're part of a team at school, you've got your senior leadership team, you've got governors, there's people you can go to, there'll be some for health and safety, some for this. You as a nursery owner, that is all on your head. You suddenly need to be an expert at Legionella and asbestos and contracts and all sorts, all in one go. And so that is a very steep learning curve, because you've got obviously legal responsibilities as a business owner, as well as trying to craft educationally what you want. And suddenly it's all on your head. And that responsibility is huge. And even at times when I was stressed in school leadership, and there were times I had to go to doctor and things, you were still an employee. You could still choose, subject to whether you could afford it, but you could walk away. Once you own a business, it's all on your head. And then the responsibility of other people as well. Even though I had teams working for me at school, the responsibility when you're paying them, and it brings it a whole different. It made me think, gosh, this is a whole nother level. And so there were bits that obviously absolutely lovely to get fully immersed in, but I worked so many more hours. And I always said, I think my little one was about 1 when I started, I said, once he starts school, I'm going to have it in a place I can work 9 till 3 and be a mum. Well, I've still never achieved it to this day, and he's 13, so maybe that's never actually going to happen. But nobody says no, nobody says stop. And you will always have a to-do list. There will always be something to do. There's always, just a minute, I just need to. There will always be that. You're never going to finish your to-do list. There will always be something to do. And so you have to put your own parameters in. And that can be really, really hard.
How do you do that?
Well, don't do what I did, which was I pushed it too far and I collapsed. Physically collapsed, fell in the study, and took a rather nice light with me that smashed as well. And so that forced me to stop, because it made you realise I was just so exhausted. You'd often work, not have lunch. I'd jump into numbers with the children. I'd then do my work on an evening, because I wanted so much to support everyone else, because I wanted the team to feel so supported. I spent so long making sure I was supporting the staff. But the problem was the cost was my own health. And so I went to see the doctor, and they said, you're going to have to find ways. They recommended CBT. I don't know whether it was the exact program I had to do. I just didn't click with it. But what I did was I got a spa membership, which I've never have allowed myself to do. I've just seen that as a treat and had nursery owner guilt over it. But I didn't use the gym, I will confess. But it had a hydro pool, and I just found that the moment I stepped into that water and I felt the heat rise up my body, it was just like I felt I let go of everything. So just for an hour, and I would make sure I didn't take my phone in, because if I did, I'll just check the nursery Facebook page, I'll just check them out. So I would leave my phone, leave a watch, and I found first thing on a morning where it was really quiet, and sometimes I was the only one there, where you just walked in and the heat came up you. And for me, I just found that the balm for my soul in that moment. It was what I needed to just go. But then afterwards, I'd always feel guilty. I'd feel I can't say to nursery I've been at the spa. It looks like I'm just sitting around on a sun lounger while they're working hard. But then I would do that for an hour and then probably work all the way through till 9 o'clock at night because I felt guilty that I'd gone. But so for me, it sounds ironic. The hot water, a hot bath, a hot tub is the thing for me that makes my mind stop going, because otherwise my mind will just go and go. So it's finding ways that you can do that for you, but it's important to do it and have to wrestle with this guilt factor of your staff team.
Yeah, and there's something really pervasive about this guilt in education, because I think when you have a job that doesn't have that vocational passion sort of linked area to it, so you're just going in and working sort of 9 till 5, doing paperwork, and you don't meet a person, you don't have that guilt when you go off sick, when you actually do something for
Yeah,
yourself. And I
yeah.
was talking to a leader yesterday who said in the holidays, so schools have 6 weeks holiday, amazing. But she was saying, but Rowena, what am I supposed to do? There is so many jobs that I can only do in the holidays. I am on
Mm,
my knees right now, but I have to get these things done. And we were discussing ways that would fit with her and her life,
mm-hmm.
because obviously a lot of us have our own children, some of us
Mm,
grandchildren, and we have elderly parents. So you're juggling your personal life, you're juggling school staff, you're juggling Ofsted expectations, everything. And I guess it's about how to give ourselves that permission to
yeah,
rest. And what rest looks like for each of us is very, very different.
yeah.
But not to feel guilty if we do take that rest.
Well, one thing I've had to do that allows me to take the rest, because I won't sit and just watch telly if I know I've got X, Y, Z to do. And of course, because my list has always got an X, Y, Z. So although I'm not a nursery owner anymore, I work supporting nursery owners in running their business and sort of working as a coach really with nursery owners for them where they're going. I know what you're going through, and let's get the business numbers sorted so they can focus on the educational side. But it does mean, because it's still my own business, I've still always got a to-do list. So one thing I've had to do is, I've got it to the side, I've got a daily diary where, because my to-do list just go on and on. If you look at my to-do list on the computer, it's 24 pages, because I'll have an idea, write it down, and then something else comes in. And I've had to say, what 3 things am I going to achieve today? And, 3 or 4 things that have to be done. Because otherwise, when I was keeping my really long list, you'd always go, well, I can't stop. So it's always giving myself permission that if I've done those, I've done what I need to do today, and that is okay. Because otherwise, there is never going to be a natural stopping point. So if you're just waiting till I just need to and then I will, you know what's going to happen. Cook's off sick, an email pops in, and you're just constantly going to firefighting. Well, firefighting is a stressful place to be, and it's not a state you can live in permanently. And that's what I find, mainly because it's nursery owners I'm working with now, that so many of them, they're in that working in the business, not on the business. And because they're like this, it's a really anxious place to be. And so it's helping them come out of that, which is why I do what I do with helping them put the business strategies in so that they can focus on the bit that actually they need to be focusing on, and enabling the team to do the bits that they can do, because otherwise you end up trying to do everybody's job. And that you can't sustain it. So, but one thing I always say to them, as well as your good old standard models of what can only you do, what can you delegate, I bring in another element, Rowena. I ask them, what brings you joy? Because you can get really stressed in a day when you're doing all the stuff that you know naturally want to do. So maybe as a leader, you're having to do business stuff or finance stuff or work through a whole lot of emails that's, that isn't exciting. But if it brings you joy for 1 hour in the end of the day to go into the baby room or to go and do whatever with the children, rather than think as oh, this is losing an hour off my to-do list, that might just be the whole thing of recentering yourself of this is what it's all about. This is what I'm doing it. Okay, I've got a day of policies I've got to write to do, but it enables this. So it helps you get that mindset of, oh, I've got to sit and do a policy stuff. Yeah, but I'm doing it for them. And so there's sometimes I think it's okay to put bits in that bring you joy. Yes, someone else could do the lunch cover, but if for you, leaving your desk and going covering lunch and chatting with the kids, you actually find really, changes your mindset in the middle of the day, that's okay. So when I say look at what you're doing, it's what can only you do and you is your job, but also have some in there that brings you joy.
Yeah, I love that, because I think sometimes whatever our role in education, we can get so lost in the sort of, as you say, hamster wheel, in the doing and the trying to, it's almost the striving of the role to get everything done and be who we
Yeah,
need to be, and bring the energy that we know is needed when we're absolutely shattered, that we lose the joy of it. And we sometimes need to step back a little bit, don't we, and say, hold
absolutely.
on a minute, need to remember why I'm doing this and what are the bits that I really love about it, which
Mm.
is a wonderful reminder. Thank you. So, I don't know how you're going to answer this. If there are nursery managers listening to
Yeah.
this who are really struggling, what
Mm.
would you be saying to them?
Now that is an interesting one because I think that even the job title nursery manager is such a huge difference in roles. It isn't a set job. I've worked with nursery managers who are, bless them, more like a glorified room lead because there might be a really active owner in there who's doing everything as a managed director. So they're more like the deputy, and they're all room based and it's chill. But you've got others who, I don't know, the owner lives out in Abu Dhabi and basically the nursery manager isn't just a nursery manager, they're running a business. So I think there's a huge disparity actually between who a nursery manager is and what they do. And I think that can sometimes cause stress when people start new jobs because what are their expectation and view of, so unpick it first is what is a nursery manager? And sometimes when you've got owners viewing it as one thing and someone comes in as something else, straight away you've got that mismatch. I am answering the question here, I'll get to it. So the thing is, if you've got this mismatch of expectations, there's always going to be this thing of, is it right? Whereas if you're on the same page, you know clearly what your role is, what you're doing, how it fits in with the bid. I think that's the first bit, because I think a lot of stress with people I've worked with is because people have ended up doing bits that aren't their job, or they're thinking the owner's doing their job when they should be, or they've been dropped by the owner to do it. So I think that relationship between the manager and the owner is really key, and that open communication to know what the expectations are, as well as practically what they need to do. Because I found that a lot of stress comes from either misunderstanding or either unrealistic expectations or miscommunication. So I think it's a hard role being a nursery manager, depending on what the relationship with the owner is, and getting that right. Because I don't think it's just one generic job description and you've been a nursery manager in one setting, could be the best manager ever, go to another, and you're finding it hard to do what you do well because it's a different ethos and philosophy. Maybe the owner doesn't have quite the same approach to things as you do. So I think a nursery manager role is a really hard one. And so that feeling that they're understood by the owner or the senior team, however it works, whether they're a preschool committee, whatever it is, I think there needs to be that clarity to start with of what's realistic. So that then, because you've got the relationship, if it's getting to the point of the stress, you can honestly go and say, this is what it is. But back to the early bit of, if you can pinpoint what's causing it, is it something specific? Is it that the team aren't responding to you? Is it that you're having to spend so long in the office you can't get that done? Is it just that identifying what is causing the stress? But of course, if you haven't got an open communication channel, you get the nursery managers who are getting stressed and it just comes to a point where they go, I quit. And then you lose an amazing, passionate educator who we've lost from the sector. So communication and that understanding. So I'd urge owners as well who, that just working to get that relationship right with the manager is just so key. And it works for everyone to have it right. And often it can just be an oversight that people think, I've worked with Betty for 10 years, Janet's coming, oh, she'll be fine, she'll be Betty, which she's not. It's taking that time to get to know Janet and Janet to understand what you want. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Okay. As we wrap up, you
Mm.
use the word thrive a lot in your
Yes.
business and in your work with educators.
Yeah.
I do as well. What do you think thriving in education looks like? What is it?
This is what I like, why I use the word thriving, because I mentioned that what I do a lot is work on the business side with owners. And so a lot of people talk about growth, profitability, which always sounds like the next thing. Now, for some people, thriving is that. But the first question I always ask when people start my Thrive program is, what does thriving look like to you? Because it isn't the same. For some people, it is more settings getting bigger. For a teacher, it might be deputy headship. It could be, for some, it'd be thriving is getting the balance right, where you're giving your all, you're proud of what you're doing, but you've got time for you and home and everything as well. And the balance can be thriving. And some people always apologize for saying that as if it's not a proper answer. Thriving has to be where you are comfortable and feel you, whatever that looks like. And if that means where you're satisfied that what you've done is enough and you're fulfilling your, education passion, but you've got whatever that looks like, I think thriving has got to be the best you. And therefore, when you're not thriving, it's when things are getting in the way of you being the best you can be in that.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that answer, because for me, it's absolutely about discovering your value, becoming the best version of you, because once you're the best version of you, you can be the best support for those around you.
Absolutely. And the best employee or the best boss, whatever it is. But when you're not there, best will in the world, you can't be. So that thriving, it's that first thing of yourself. And that's what we talked about a bit through this, isn't it? That recognition of yourself, where you're at, being able to reflect. And often I find that can be really hard to do, because you're caught up in what you're doing. So whether it's having a good friend, or at school, whether it's a group of other teachers or school leaders or nursery owners, I think particularly when I found becoming a nursery owner, I couldn't understand why no one wants to work together, and it can be a really lonely place, because of course business competition and things comes in. And I think finding a tribe of people who get you, where you can be really honest about what you're going through, people who get you, understand it, where you can just go, whew, oh, today's been rubbish, and share it in a safe space, can just be so important. Even if they just go, yeah, I understand, I hear you, and they don't solve your problems, just feeling that someone's held you in it just helps release that, when you hold everything tight and then it's affecting you physically. So that is one thing I'd definitely recommend in order to recognize in yourself, because no one else is going to put that accountability in unless they work with a coach like you, Rowena, or myself, or, join these groups. It can be hard doing it by yourself, and it can be lonely by yourself. And it's not a sign of weakness to say, come on, we're all in this together. Let's support each other. Let's be the accountability, but also be there for each other and be that support.
Love that. Jane, you've given us so much to think about today. If people want to find out more about you, where's the best place for them to go?
I have a website, www.janetodd.co.uk. I've also got a Facebook group page, which is Jane Todd Nursery Business Support. It's a group, actually, not a page. And I'm on LinkedIn as well, Dr Jane Todd. And Instagram's Early Years Jane. So loads of places you can find me.
Brilliant. And I have to say, I just Googled your name this morning to check, and it came straight up. So if you're not sure, but we'll put the links in the show notes anyway.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Jane, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening. See you in the next one. Thanks for listening. I hope you took something of value from today. If you want to connect, I'm at rowenahicks.com, or I have a Facebook group, which is Preventing Teacher Burnout. So I look forward to connecting to you at one of those.